Welcome to Kass Bar and Podcast, Canada's first podcast bar. What that means is you can come here for food, you can come here for drinks, you can also come here and record a podcast. Come on down, we're located in downtown Calgary, Alberta in the Beltline area. See you soon.
Awesome. Well, hey, welcome to the show, Ernie. I think we've been trying to work this for at least a couple months and trying to get you on here. And, we've been working together for at least a couple of years, and it's been awesome. So I'm glad to have you here and get to know you a little bit better.
Oh, man, I can't tell you how excited I am, especially from, our Alberta Hospitality Association end of things to be here in the first podcast bar in Canada. This is awesome what you guys put together.
Oh, thank you so much. It was definitely not easy, and it definitely had its challenges going here, and convincing people on our concept and like what we're trying to do, and the right people believed in us, and we got there.
Yeah, I think let's reverse engineer this. Let me ask you a couple questions.
Sure.
Man. Like, how did you and your partner, you guys started podcasting in a garage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Garage. Yeah.
Yeah, in your garage.
Yeah.
Okay, and then. How'd this all come to a fruition where it's a podcast studio inside a bar?
Right. So we'll go even further back to even before we were podcasting. There's four of us all together, and hence the acronym CAX. So there's four partners. We ended up just going down to two of us. So just me and Shawn, so K and S. But we started this project in my garage again in November 2022.
Ooh, so COVID?
Yeah, as COVID was kind of coming out, right? We're kind of getting out of COVID. So we all sat together like, we can do this. Like, I've been in the industry now almost 2 decades. And then we're like, we can do this. We all brought a little piece to it. And what we wanted to do was a photo booth, but a podcast booth in the bar. And the reason why is because when we're all hanging out having beers and chatting, why not do it over a podcast? We were with the fellas one day, and we were all like, we should start a podcast, and we were out drinking at a bar. So we thought, okay, well, we can maybe combine these two things, because really, when we always found like having a few beers and having that conversation kind of loosen up really, really goes over well. So we started doing that, and that was the pinnacle of it. And then when we started to find some space, we ended up finding here in the Upton. And then it kind of worked out because the way the room's shaped is like this podcast booth can literally fit in this square.
Yeah.
This is awesome. And it faces the window faces the McLeod or First Street, that you can actually say on air and have it like a radio show.
Yeah, Calgary, Alberta, right? This is just so everyone knows. This is in Calgary, Alberta.
Yeah, Calgary, Alberta on 10th Avenue and First Street Southeast. Yeah, right close to the Dome. We're besides the Hitman Bar, we're the closest bar to the Dome. So we started that, and then we ended up finding a general contractor, and we really hit it off with him, and we started building it together. And he really believed in our dream too. And we got the keys. So we signed the lease in August 2020. 2022 August we signed. So 2021 November we started. And then 2022 in August we signed the lease. We got the keys in 2022 October. And we opened June 1st.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's great. Like, so everyone knows, young and up-and-coming podcasters, they could come and use this space, correct?
Absolutely. We rent it out for anywhere between $50 to $225 an hour, depending on what you wanted. So if you felt like you could edit and do everything yourself, then come on in and we'll give you the equipment. That way you don't have the initial investment of buying the equipment. It is quite costly, especially if you want to be an upstarter, right? Like if you wanted to buy a couple mics and buy the sound mixer and then buy the programming, we have all that. So we can do that here. We can have our guys sit in here and, help you start, because we want to help. And then film your show, and we'll drop off the footage to you and all the content, and you guys can do whatever you want with it.
Oh man, this is like, the space is awesome. The graffiti mural back there, showcasing two artists. Is that correct?
2 artists, 2 Calgary-born artists. One of them is Jessie Sinclair. She's a teacher, and she just loves art, and that's her hobby. So she took that picture of us in my garage, just podcasting, and then she put it on a projector and then started painting. It's really, really cool. And then we got JD War Paints in to the collab, just kind of work around that Jessie Sinclair painting. So he did the graffiti because we wanted to create that street, urban, industrial look here. Because I really feel like that's what Calgary is, right? Like we're small town mentality. We're
big city, small town attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone knows everyone, and just having that down to earth kind of feel.
What about your business partner here, man? Talk to me about him. I only got to meet him like this morning. So
here, but I've known him since I was 14 years old. Yeah, so we've known each other for we've known each other for a long time. There's been times where we haven't talked or whatever, but we really started hitting it off again when I got him a job at State Main in Chinook.
Yeah.
And then we just started hanging out some more, and eventually, he was bartending then for another 10 more years, and it's like, we can do this. And then that's when we decided to, collab and work together. But we've known each other for so long, like friends and families, like we're really close.
Yeah, man, that's a dream for so many entrepreneurs out there. I know my business partner PJ and his business partner John Leewag, they've been together for over 30 years, gotta be all the way back to high school, right? So you're talking about craft beer market, the radio hospitality group, right? So
yeah,
that's great to hear that you and your partner have been together for that long. That's awesome.
Yeah, and then it creates that trust, right? And we know, like, I know his parents, like, and he knows mine very well, right? Like, it creates that trust between us all that we can really work together and work through our shit. Because there's always shit.
Oh man, I know that. There is always shit. Perfectly said. And what about family, dude? Before I get your partner on here, like, how's the balance been? I know you just had a kid, right?
She turns 1 on Friday.
So right in the midst of the build out and
well, like I said, so we started this November 2021. So we had the dream and we're going to go for it, and then we found out we were pregnant, and then we're like, okay, how do we? I think we just got to keep going. We just got to keep going. We'll figure this out. The balance has been good. She doesn't work. She just stays at home, takes care of the little one. But we've had tremendous amount of supports through our. Like my parents, her parents, and everyone, that we can really balance it out. I do try to take days off to hang out with family because, just like you said, and kind of struck a nerve, not struck a nerve, but kind of hit home for me on that text, because I think we were gonna hang out last week or sometime last week or whatever it was, and then it was like, no, family's in, family's first.
Yeah.
So keeping that in mind, like, yes, the business is very, 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 very important to me, but family, it calms you down. It's a thing that when I go home, I can forget about the world for a second and kind of just enjoy the family.
It's a hard balance in this industry, though, right?
Totally. Like, it's there's going to be days, like the next couple of days, I won't really see them.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just the way it is. But I think my partner, or my wife, she's been in the industry for so long that she understands it.
Yeah.
Right. So she's a pro just like me. So she gets it.
She's still in the industry?
Well, no, she's not working right now.
Yeah.
She does some of my min work here, though.
Right.
Like, she helps out at home and stuff. And when the baby's asleep, she can kind of like get on the computer and help.
So how's it been getting some of these podcasters into the space, and what's the plans in the next year, 2 years? So
what we would ideally like is have a little bit more like how people have like us as their hub as their shows. The last few have been just everyone coming onto our show. And what we really want to showcase is people like yourself, just regular Calgarians, and we want to showcase their story, and we want to do that for free. So that's what our show is going to do, is showcase everyone else for free, and they can use us as a platform to kind of launch whatever they're trying to launch for free.
Yeah.
And we just want to hear their story.
Yeah.
Right. So part of our brand is, come for the beer, stay for the conversation. But part of it is telling stories of Calgarians, because in Calgary, because we have that big city, small town mentality, but a lot of people move here. They're from different walks of life.
Oh, so yeah.
Right. And that's what we want to showcase as well. And just both of us being Calgary born, we can really showcase that and, bring that into the hospitality industry as well, because when we're all sitting at a bar, we meet all walks of life. If you're in this industry, like Anthony Bourdain never said, you have to work in this industry for at least a year, because you can read people like a fucking book, right? Like,
or it goes back to the other saying, is like every single person should work in our industry at one point or another.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. It shows work ethic. It shows, people skills is the big thing.
Massive.
Yeah,
massive.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, we each other. So, hey, Shawn's in the room right now, and Ernie just wants to talk to him a little bit. But we'll switch over.
Ernie, nice to meet you. I'm Shawn, by the way.
You, man.
Yeah, no, obviously I've heard a lot about you, especially during the COVID period, because you represented the restaurant bar side, battling against the government and all the crazy, uphill
trying
battles.
To keep us open, yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, Kass has always told me like great things about you, and he's like, hey, like one of these days you got to meet Ernie. He's a total alpha dude that like knows what he's doing in our industry. And yeah, so I was looking forward to this one. And originally, the plan was to have all three of us like do this in like a 3-way podcast.
Right.
But the problem right now is Stampede ended and a bunch of our staff, just some scheduling issues happened. So then Kass and I are actually bartending as well. That's why we're like, hey, how do we do this today? So right now, fortunately, lunch is a little quiet. So I was able to actually jump in and meet you. So yeah, like I got loads of questions too on my end, but I guess.
But let me start, man.
Okay,
so
sure,
I know Kass well, but talk to me about you. Like, what's your background?
Yeah.
What how this come to be? It started in a garage, but you know, and where are you guys going with it?
Yeah, exactly. Like, so funny story. I met Kass when he was 14, and I was actually 19. So how that ended up happening was we were both waiters at the Stampede Catering, and I was in university at the time, and we both had part-time jobs. But the funny thing was, Kass and I hit it off with him, and I don't know what his parents was feeding him because he seemed a little bit older than 14. So I remember after we're done hanging out. Oh, this is amazing, by the way.
Fresh out of the tanks, my man. Fresh out of the tanks.
Yeah. Trolley five's juicy. So Ernie, I ended up saying to Kass, like after our shift, I'm like, hey man, like you're really funny, like let's go get a drink, right? And then he's like, I can't, I got school tomorrow. And then I was thinking, well, I'm in university as well, like just cut class. He's like, oh no, I'm not in university. I'm like, oh shit, you're in high school. My bad, you know. And then he's like, I'm in junior high, man. And then I remember just thinking to myself, I'm like this looks bad on me. Then I'm like, hey, no, this junior high kid or whatever. But we hit it off like real well, and then we're super we're just super compatible friends, if you will. And from there, Kass and I would go on and not talk to each other for years at a time, but every time we're reconnected, it's just
back to normal.
Exactly. Yeah. So if we had a crystal ball and you told me back then that I was going to open a bar with him, like I wouldn't have believed it. But it's just funny how life turns out, because I went to oil and gas after I finished university. Like I have a communications degree, and then I have a surface land certification. So I was working in oil and gas, and yeah, it was good money and everything like that. And I thought that's the direction to go. But I hated my life. Like I hated being in an office. I hated just typing away, doing work that I can't tell if it makes a difference or not, you know. But I remember I hit a bad streak, if you will, and I had to get out of just working in an office, period. So I quit.
Mental health wise, or
mental health. Yeah, I was miserable. Like I wasn't doing what I love, and I was doing myself a disservice by staying in there. So I made the move, and I quit, and I got out, and I had to kind of re-put myself back together. But at that point, Kass came to the rescue, because he came to me like, hey man, like at that point I traveled a little bit. I did that. That was fun. But in the end, you know, I had to get working again. I had to like figure myself out. But
how old were you then?
This was 7 years ago, maybe even 8 years ago, roughly. But Kass came to rescue, and at that point, he was a managing partner at one of the bars that we were working at. He was working at, and he came back to me and said, "Hey, get back into bartending. Bartending is always something I did on the side.
Flexible schedule.
Yeah,
good money.
Good money.
Like, you get what you work for.
Exactly. Yeah. And personality-wise, I mean, like I am a bar guy at the end of the day. So I got back in there, and I started working for Kass, which again is funny if we rewound back through time. I didn't think like the 14-year-old kid would become my boss or whatever. No, but Kass ended up being like a super cool boss to work for, like objectively speaking. Like he did me no favors. He treated me just like everyone else. And then one day he kind of like said to me, he's like, hey, I really want to open my own bar one of these days. I feel like I can do this better than the way we've been seeing it done. And what he meant by that was, so many bars we noticed people aren't like hanging out there anymore, you know, like they come in, they get their medicine.
In terms of a regular perspective, where they're there
even regulars, they come in. I mean, I think he had stats. It's like your average guest check was $30 within 30 minutes.
Yeah,
or something.
in and out, right?
Yeah, so he's like, that's not bars, because when he first turned 18, I remember like we would sit at bars for hours, and some might say that's like a not good use of your time, but I differ. I mean, if you have a productive life, and then on the weekend or Saturday, Sunday, or Friday, like you spend the whole evening there, it's like a clubhouse. Like you want to be there for a while.
About bar or nightclub or
bars,
bars
that serve food and drinks. And so then Kass was like, we gotta, like, he has a vision of opening a bar restaurant. And then at the time, I've always been big into podcasts. So like I was one of the original, when Joe Rogan shot his first podcast out of his garage, there's 1,000 viewers.
Yeah.
I was one of the live 1,000 viewers.
That
Yeah,
is
I'm being
awesome,
serious.
man.
Yeah, so and like I didn't realize. Well, I realized something was going on with that, but like I knew that I was as he progressed
Were
his
you
show.
looking at it as this could be a career path, or were you looking at it as passion? This is what you wanted to do.
Passion.
Yeah.
I love this. This at the end of the day is actually what I love doing. Like I'm meeting you. I know you're an accomplished person, and I want to learn. I want to talk to someone, and at the same time talk to people who enjoy having fun too. Like because this right here is different. When I notice, like when you're chatting with the mic, this is way more dialed in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you can actually feel the human energy exchange, if you will. Like there's some kind of cool bonding thing that's going on here. And I noticed that the most similar to this would be drinking at the bar, talking to someone, and you're nice and relaxed with some, like some sweet juicy, some sweet juicy here.
7%,
yeah. But the vision for this was already in play like almost 7 years ago, talking about it. And then we started getting serious with our other two business partners originally right before the pandemic. Like we started talking about it all the time. And then, as Kass mentioned, originally the podcast element, we thought had been done a bit before. I was really shocked that no other bar has a podcast show. I mean, it's the idea was always so
I thought
obvious.
it was the first in Alberta, but it's the first in Canada.
From what I understand, yeah. Like, like when we were getting incorporated and doing that nuance report, and they were like, yeah, like they told me, okay, your bar business or podcast business. I said, well, it's one business. They're like, oh, well, that's unique. That's the first in our thing. They're trying to categorize it, but they ultimately had it under bar restaurant, but they added that whole like podcast studio part for the description. But we were going to do this before the pandemic. Like that, like, I mean, the business plan was in place. The idea was in place. Other partners were in place. We were coming up with the money and everything like that. And the ball was rolling, and COVID just splashed the whole thing. So then we put it on pause for 2 whole years. But I remember, like, whenever we did meet during that 2-year period, like we kept talking about this. We're like, when are we going to do this again? And then it just became this, for me anyway, it became this itch. Like, I was like, if I don't do this, I'm going to regret it, think about it, like, and then we finally took action. And unfortunately, the other two business partners, just the way life goes, like they couldn't full commit to the entirety of the project. But by then we'd already branded. So that's the origins of the word CAX. People are curious what that even means. It was an acronym. I'm the S and Kass is the
four
K.
partners.
Exactly. And then but then Kax, just we kept it because it's a funny word, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like you're saying cocks.
Yeah. I don't know if that's the brand you want to be rolling now, but
yeah. Well, I don't know. Our password for our Wi-Fi is "I love Kags." Ernie, and it's been a lot of hard work, and then we both quit our bartending jobs and bar managing jobs and went full in, and here we are now. It's been a roller coaster so far, and we know there's gonna be way more crazy days to come.
Oh, you have no idea.
Yeah. But that in a nutshell is the origin story for Kax.
What I think is cool about what you guys built here isn't just for the young and up and coming podcasters or content builders that can use this space, but for also the bigger podcasters that might be coming through town. Now they don't have to worry about renting equipment. They can come in, use the space, bring in guests. It's central. It's right downtown. I think that's what's going to be really cool is if you're catching those those content builders that are coming through town.
That's right. We've already begun doing that. So I caught my most recent podcast I published. His name is Chris Lamont. So he lives out of Ontario, but he has 30,000 TikTok followers, and his TikTok content has reached the highest one, 15 million views. So I had him swinging through, and we just connected during Stampede. So like that's someone I was rubbing shoulders with, and it was a good podcast. I recommend people listen to it because if you really hear from the mind of a young content creator who's making it his full-time gig. Then we had one with her name's Kat. Her YouTube channel is called Sincerely Kat and Philip. So that was 4 episodes back. She has 160,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is hard to get. It's the YouTube one is the hardest to get. So like the podcast direction. It's heading in multiple directions. Like, one, yes, we want to rub shoulders with content creators. Two, we want to make it business advertising motivated, right? Like, for instance, we had other brewers on, and now Ernie's here. Yeah, you're here. So it's like those podcasts could be very central towards promoting a business. And if it's on the Cax Bar podcast show itself, it's all free, as my partner mentioned earlier, because the whole point is it's mutually beneficial. It's like this is our gift to Calgary, and then you're gifting us with your realm of people that you'll share that. Exactly. I will say though, like the origins of this podcast, like there's no criteria to come on though. Like anyone can come on. Like everyone's voice can be heard. Because the podcast, some of them are just me and our friends. We're just having drinks and just bullshitting, right? And to be honest, those are some of the funnest podcasts, right? Yeah. But we do have to, I do the editing right now. So it's like we do, we make sure we chop out the super outrageous stuff. Because everyone says outrageous stuff when they're drinking, right? So it's like, so we do chop that out. Yeah, exactly. And then as Kass mentioned, this room is rentable too. For people to if they want to make their own content, and then we have the varying price ranges, because that one gets charged because the idea is that you're renting the room out to do your own content, so it's not our content anymore, it's yours.
And they'd be able to do their own backdrop back here.
They can decorate the room however they want.
Awesome.
And we've actually had I'm not going to dive too deep, but so I had a person like she's going to rent the room soon. But she's a sex worker. So like what she does is like, she works in strip clubs and does OnlyFans, things like that. But like she has a 8-part series that she specifically just wants to do, a half-hour piece, and that's it. Like she has a story she wants to tell.
Wow.
And then so she might be renting out this room. Now, when she does it though, she said she doesn't want to talk about, Cax Bar and podcast or have that affiliation just for her own like safety and stuff.
She'd essentially use this as a studio.
Yeah, so she's gonna decorate the crap out of it when she's gonna go through with it, and she's gonna film it. I think she said like at this angle, so the backdrop doesn't show. So that's what I mean. Like that's a very private film, and that's gonna be hers. And so this room is usable for like anyone to do whatever they want with it if they rent it out. It's their content. But when I say anything, I don't mean actual OnlyFans, but you know what I mean. But yeah, but like if some people just like to use a room like this to film personal testimonials and stuff, right? But Ernie, that's in a nutshell. Up to this point, where we're going with it. So Ernie, if you're comfortable, I got loads of questions for you.
Yeah, you know what, you can hit me now, man.
Yeah.
Let me get a tug here, and then. Yeah, go ahead. Hit me.
Yeah, absolutely. So just pretend I never heard of Ernie before, and today was the first time. And the lowdown that I got was, Ernie owns Trolley 5, and he's also the face of the hospitality industry's representation.
I wouldn't say I'm the face. I mean,
okay.
there's lots of amazing people on our board.
Right, on the board. Okay, that's what I meant to say. Yeah.
For the Alberta Hospitality Association.
Okay.
Jeff Jameson's, has been doing a heavy amount of interviews for our board and keeps getting us out there. Jeff, who owns Vine Arts and Proof, same path, started off as a busboy and worked his way through the industry, but we've got a great board.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Can you take me through your origin story then?
I mean, way back when you guys were probably not even alive. I started off as a busboy, wormed my way into one of Calgary's largest nightclubs. So a friend of mine's brother was out with his friends, and one of those people at the table were a bartender at one of the biggest nightclubs in Calgary at the time. And I was 16, just about to turn 17, and I could hear him at the table. They were having beers and stuff, and he was complaining about the busboys and how he could never get glassware, and he'd give $50, $100 if he could ever have someone just dedicated to making sure their bar was up and running. So on a Friday night, I went to the back of the nightclub, watched people coming in and out of the back, taking garbage out, etc., and then snuck in, grabbed a bus pan, and started to just bring glassware, like grabbing empty glassware, bring it to the bars. No one had no idea who I was. Didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that there's some money to be made. And as I started to do it, the bartenders were like, "Oh, you're new. Thanks for bringing me the glassware." Well, from there, ended up making like $150 cash that night, and it just kind of rolled forward from there. And managers were like, "Hey, we haven't seen you on payroll yet." And I started learning the managers' names. I'm like, "Oh well, Cindy's got my payroll information. I don't know what's going on. I'm pretty sure it's coming, right?"
Yeah.
And
That's
just
ballsy.
kind of yeah. But as time went on, 150 went to like $300 a night.
Bussing.
Yeah, bussing.
Yeah,
Right?
and that's back then too. So equate that today. That's like $600.
So that's how I got my start in the industry, and then I was blessed enough at 18, a restaurant and pub opened up in the area that I lived in, way in Midnapore, called at that time it was called the Seahorse Pub and Restaurant, and it was part of a massive restaurant and nightclub group called Claudio's Group.
Okay.
And I kept going in. I wanted to be a waiter. I was blessed to meet my mentor in the industry at that time, right at 18. His name was Todd Perkins. And, Todd, we were serving big dishes back then. It was like $55 a cover just for food, like black and prime rib, Caribbean lobster tail, lemon verblanc sauce, that kind of alley, right?
Yeah.
And I said, I want to be a waiter here. And he's like, "No way. You start off as a busser, and then you'll turn into a server assistant, then work your way up." And I just kept coming back every day. And then he finally said, "Okay, I will hire you as a waiter, 2-table section, and you still have to run food." But meeting him was a turnaround, and I literally started off in the industry like that and worked for the Claudio's Group for quite some time, moved up through the ranks, started managing, and here I am.
The where's that? Like, was it always the industry that you were passionate about? Like, because it started off as you said when you were a busboy, you're thinking money. Like, oh hey, I can get some quick cash doing this job that I know I can do that these other people aren't trying at. But then, like, were you right away to just fall in love with that, like the hustle of the hospitality game?
I fell in love with the people part. Like you get to meet, and especially on the work side, like people back then that I worked with were so dynamic. Back then, bartenders were like a draw.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah,
you would. Yeah. Bartenders had to say, like, customers would come from all over Calgary to see specific bartenders, and this is before flair bartending or chucking bottles or glassware around. It was just because they're dynamic and they had that personality, and they worked very hard at their craft. Yeah.
Bartending was like a legit back then, like career. Like you literally, you're a bartender. It's like, because I well, maybe I'll talk to you off the air after, because I cut my teeth in a couple of nightclubs too. Well, one nightclub, sorry, but what you're talking about, I kind of saw the tail end of that, I think, and then I don't think the bartending culture will return to that anymore. But carry on. Like I understand that back then bartending it wasn't just something like, oh, you have to pay your dues to get into that role.
Oh yeah,
and you have to be, and back then it was like you actually had to know 1,000 cocktails at that point, because people actually ordered it like that. Yeah,
you had to know shooters inside out too.
Yeah. Quick question. I got 2 quick questions. Just one for my curiosity. When you were 16, so for that rest of that year, did you just kind of work under the table as a busboy?
They finally caught me. I was about 7. I was almost 18 at this point.
Yeah.
And general manager at that point had come up to me and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you for a second, bucko."
Yeah.
And he's like, "So I found out something really interesting. We have never paid you. Like, it's been a stretch, and you keep saying that, so-and-so's got your payroll information and that it's all good." Well, yeah, it's all good because I need to see your ID. And then it came all out in the wash. But he laughed about it, and he said, "Well, unfortunately, like, the next 3 months you can't be working anymore."
Yeah.
And then once I turned 18, I badgered my way into the Seahorse Pub and Restaurants.
What like your old manager at the club, he just laughed it off because in theory you could have cost him the liquor license.
Honestly, yeah, and that was like when I look back on it, that is a big pool of regret because AGLC, they've got a job to do too. And, but at that time, I mean, nightclubs were just so busy. Trying to catch one person in the staff of 110 is going to be pretty tough, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, super commendable. I love that ballsy attitude. And then, where did we leave off? Sorry, that was the one detail. And then I had another question.
Yeah, like for me, it was that the nightclub industry of the Claudio's group, and they were it back then. We're talking about Electric Avenue. We're talking about the Fox and Firkin, Coconut Joe's, Banditos, and then Claudio's group paired off with Matt McNeil at that time, who started up the pubs. Yeah. Claudio's group also started getting into the pub scene, the one-man entertainer pubs, which was the Seahorse Pub and Restaurant, the King's Head.
Mm-hmm. The King's Head.
Yeah.
Okay.
King's Head, man. Yeah, $1.50 beers Thursdays. And
King's Head's still around, right?
King's Head is back. And they are back with vengeance. Like,
okay. Are they the same spot near Richmond?
Yeah, same spot, live bands, right? So they're like full bands. They've got some great renos that they've done in there, and which is great to see because live
Kass
music
and I went there a few times.
Yeah, live music has been hard in the city to get back and going.
Continue your journey. I'm fascinated by this. So it was a restaurant game. You worked your way into being a waiter, but at this point, how did it escalate to how did it jump from that to Trolley 5?
Well, that was the great thing about this industry is when you find my first passion was the people.
Yes.
And obviously, I could not believe the amount of money you could be making in the industry at that time too. That's the one thing I love about our industry. You what you work for is
you kill what you
generally
eat.
What you get. Yeah. Like you work longer hours, you have a larger ring out, you'll make more money. But our industry is also like so amazing at that flexibility of schedule. Right?
It's getting better with each sip, by the way.
It's a delicious beer.
Yeah.
From there, the managers of the Claudio's group, and Todd Perkins being one of them, and I had another amazing manager there named Cindy, and she was the product manager. So she's the one that got me into wine.
Okay.
Wine,
are you sommelier as well?
Pairings, beer pairings, and just overall love of food, right?
So are you sommelier as well?
No,
but you basically
I've done it. Like I've gone, I don't know, it's got to be like 40 hours more of wine training from 18 to 22.
Yeah,
right. So, and don't get me wrong, sommelier is important. Like for Trolley 5, any of our staff that choose to take WSET or Cicerone. As soon as they pass and get that certification, we refund their certificate at 100%.
Amazing,
right? So I think product knowledge is very important, at all aspects and in any industry.
Yeah.
But I was blessed to have such great managers in the Claudio's group, and watching those managers, made me want to move up, into that role.
So from this, at this point, it sounded like it started with the people, like you just loved the culture of it, but now you're starting to actually love like the craft of hospitality.
And the competition, like it was highly competitive back then, right? Like nightclubs it's so odd, it's a highly competitive industry, but it's still very tight knit.
Yeah.
Right. So it's that's what's amazing about the hospitality industry.
Yeah.
But the competition of it all.
Can you comment on that a little bit? Like, because what I'm trying to ask is, because it's a smaller niche per se. Like, how many nightclubs was on Electric Ave? Maybe it's like, say on a high side, say there's a dozen, right?
Oh, like in the in a 3-block radius. Yeah. Between nightclubs and pool halls, which were massive back then. Yeah. You're looking at 22 nightclubs, pool halls within 3 to 4 blocks.
But these people, it's like these other businesses, because we're kind of running into this now ourselves. Like, you want to compete, but you also want to be you also want to learn from each other, kind of thing. So there's almost this weird balance of
well, I'm trying to outdo you in sales, but I still like what you do here that we're not doing here. And then I almost equate it to, because Kass and I, we have friends that run their own bars and restaurants and stuff. And it's funny how it's almost like the ones we grew tighter with in the short term are the ones we're not competing with, but collabing with. Yeah. But then we have other friends that are, in a weird way, like we're kind of competing now with them. So there's this oddness now that has developed since we entered the scene. So it's like, but it's weird because like at the end of the day, like we're all trying to make money doing what we love, but we don't want to screw each other. you know what I mean? So you kind of know what I'm asking.
I think for me the largest component is take care of your own four walls first.
Yeah.
You have to. It's hard. You have to be dedicated to the passion and the love of what you want to happen inside your four walls as a restaurant, a bar, a pub, a lounge. And, my partner now, PJ, who is with the craft beer market, I think he's done such a good job of bringing me back into those tracks, is because when you get concerned about every other concept that's happening in and around you, you forget about what should be happening inside the four walls. And it's baseball. If you don't take care of first base first, there's, you don't get around to second, third, and you definitely don't get to a home run. So I always, for myself, and I've always lived by this, is the baseball formula. You got to get to first base first. And first base, and to me in our industry, is you really have to dial in what's happening in your four walls first before you even look at what's happening on the outside.
Okay. Yeah, no, that definitely some solid.
Collaboration-wise, I think, I don't think I know, in all my years in this industry, the most successful places focus on their four walls, but they still support and collaborate with other restaurants. And especially on the brewery side, man, like you can learn so much from other breweries, like having Ben from Gigantic fly up in our first 3 years, Gigantic Brewing in Portland, and doing some collaboration brews with us, taught us a lot of lessons on New England hazies, that IPAs that were coming out just starting to come out at that time, right? So, the more you can collaborate, the more you can learn, the better.
Yeah. Like we're all about the collaboration portion. One, because of the podcast, like it's, like this is every time we have another business step in, it's a mini collaboration in a way. But we do have some staples, like you guys are one of them. Cold Garden, by Hendo, and Snake Lake, like those those top four guys. Yeah. Like
Hendo's awesome.
Hendo's the man. Yeah. Hendo is the man. Oh yeah, we had a great podcast with him too. I still racially don't know what he is when I look at him, but even though he explained everything, but
he probably explained it at like 100 miles a minute, eh? Like,
well, I was just still like, I was like, I can't pinpoint. It's like he's like a floating shade of multiple colors. I don't know, but and right now, like obviously Ernie, like we're young pups in this game here right now, so. I don't know. Kass was just he just reiterated me. He's like Ernie's someone to learn from, man. Like it's that's like if we're going like Star Wars shit. Like like we got.
Well, you learn from failure, right? And there have been some failures along the way. Do you care to turn around? But yeah,
do you care to share one of the failures and then how you rebounded?
Yeah, what you went through? There was a restaurant that I got involved in as an owner. Way back when I had, I used to be one of the owners of Classic Jack's 1410 1600.
Okay, yeah, I think I heard about that.
Yeah, it was called Group 933 was the group at that time.
Yeah.
Two amazing partners, George and Ari. Like, we literally started from scratch at Classic Jack's, turned it around, and then built, the World Beer Houses from there.
Yeah.
During that time, I stumbled across a restaurant space that I thought was too good to turn down. My business partners wanted us to stay focused on World Beer Houses, and I went and got involved in this restaurant and, on the side. And you come to realization that even if you're doing multiple locations, you still have to be there.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And, my focus was the top three restaurants, which were producing very well at the time, Jack's 1410 1600, and did not put my attention into this side project, and that mentality side project, did not go well. But you learn from it, and you learn that you're blessed with the business partners that you have that put in the same amount of work as you. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That lesson there.
And I think that's where, sorry to interrupt, I think that's where you at Kass have something that you always hear this in every podcast or YouTube is you are who you surround yourself around, right?
Yes.
Like the people around you are who you are and who you become. So if you have the same like-minded partners, the same work ethic, it's awesome to come to work every day.
Yeah. That's where Kass and I kind of joke with him about this, but do you play Street Fighter, the video game?
Oh man, I played it when it's funny you bring up Street Fighter because we put out a beer, a collaboration beer with Cabin Brewing actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And it was called the Double Dragon, and we used some of the images from Street Fighter. But I played Street Fighter before. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was just like, because him and I were basically Ryu Ken. Like we do the.
You're like, obviously Ryu. We're going down that race.
I suppose.
Yeah, because he wouldn't be Ken.
Yeah. No. Literally, I'd be Ryu. I actually dress as Ryu for way too many Halloweens. No, but like, because him and I, we just discovered like, because of what Kass and I, we're at least have what you mentioned, that work ethic part. Like, we're both here every day, 7 days a week, open to close, and we'll put in those hours, and almost at a detriment right now because Kass has a newborn. But we're definitely two sides of the coin though, because like my strengths are his weaknesses, I would imagine. Like we talk about this all the time, and then sometimes we get heated talking about it, and then his strengths are my weaknesses. So there's some definite, just a perfect pairing thing that happened there. But because I think
you're lucky.
Yeah, doing business is, I'm just come to realize it's more intimate than any relationship. Like it's because everything is all on the table. There's nothing to hide. Money's on the line. Your true character. I'm not talking about morality. I mean just how you respond to things. It is showing in real time. I think the only thing that can trump that is if we were in a platoon in war. Yeah. I think that's the only thing that could trump that, because otherwise, business, I'd say, is the most intimate.
Wartime analogy is the best.
Yeah, but it's true, because when you're there, it's like, so say us three were in a platoon. We can't fake when the gunfire is coming. Like who stepped up, who didn't, who hid, who didn't, who actually said, okay, I'm gonna get.
You're getting slammed, and it's like, stop, close the doors.
Yeah.
Well, in a war, you tell the other side to stop firing bullets.
No, you just got to make do, and then so that's one of Kass's super strong powers. It's like he can perform under pressure like someone I've never seen. Like in fact, he almost needs chaos to start to go. Yeah. And then me, I'm the classic planner. Like OCD, like everything's lined up. This is the execution, blah blah. Like, and then, but then my method, for the first time in my life, doing this line of work, from a business owner standpoint, it showed. I'm like, man, you can't control all variables. No. So like, but then that's where he comes in, where he can roll with the punches.
That is something I have learned dramatically from my partner PJ. Now, I mean, they've got craft beer markets across the country.
Yeah.
Right, and. He's really mastered that trust in the management team underneath him. But I think for the general public, like what you're saying there, with our industry, what everyone doesn't understand is personal guarantee, right? So personal guarantee will make everyone's perspective of our industry change in a snap of a finger. When your mortgage or everything you have personally guaranteed and signed off on, attached to your business, then everything changes at 180 degrees in a snap of a finger.
I don't know if I want to keep this part on the podcast or not, but I'll try to tiptoe my way around this. But that is, so obviously Kass and I have loads of personal guarantees slapped on us, but we took that on because we're like,
this is what you want to do.
This is what I want to do. Whether I fail,
all in, I'm all in.
Yeah. Like our mentality was like, well, there's two parts to this. And again, I don't know if I want to keep this part, but anyway, like I cut out this part where I said I'm talking to myself out loud about whether or not I want to keep this part. But like the other day, Kass had a friend in here, but we were chatting because when we signed our personal guarantees, Ernie, it was like we were under the impression it was XYZ. it was told it was XYZ, but then
if something goes wrong, that you're still going to be okay.
Oh man,
you're not okay.
Life threw a wrench in it, and the exact scenario where we said we won't sign this unless it's XYZ, and then the banks and everything were like, oh, it's XYZ, and then the thing that we said was like whatever, like the thing that can't happen, otherwise we'd say no, like we wouldn't sign a personal guarantee if this happened. It happened after we signed the personal guarantee, so it's like so we basically got stuck into. It was weird. We're almost like, the analogy I have is like we're like a ship at sea. Now we're way too far from port, and whether we die or live, we have to figure this out. And that's where like I give Kass a lot of credit, because that's where like I'm ashamed to say like I didn't exactly handle that part well, because I was sitting there like I'm a planner. Up to this point, I plan everything I do. That's where Kass is like, he's like cracking his knuckles, like, oh, we're in chaos realm now. Like I know how to adapt. So he led the charge there. He got us through the stormy period. In hindsight, obviously,
you talk about the stormy financial period, or
everything with this analogy is financial. But we got back on track. But what you're mentioning to the general public, like a personal guarantee, like I've come to realize, I want to pretend like I'm this hero that I signed that with such confidence, but it's like, no, you're rolling on three things. Belief, that you believe that what you're scientifically calculating will work. Then there's just raw belief, as in faith.
There's passion. Belief, faith,
the other faith, as in like how everything turns out. You just believe it'll work in your favor, and then you know what? I will slap whatever the third one I had in my brain. I'm gonna throw that away, because passion, like we love this. So that's why we're doing it. Like whether we fail, we're going to do it. The only problem is
passion sure changes when the personal guarantee comes around.
Yeah. Well, that's why. But it's like we're so all in, and we're going for it, right? But there's no guarantee still, and that's the only scary part. Is like that's why I kind of was trying to really like want to have this conversation with you, because I'm like, Ernie must have seen a bunch of shit, and you just already said you saw one business of yours not go. So how did you take that at the time? Did it break you or no? Like,
it didn't break me. It motivated me. It motivated me to be much smarter with being pragmatic about my time. You think, you get not used to. I was the worst example of workaholic, buckle down, 60-hour days, not a problem. But that's not sustainable. But when you look at it from growth standpoint, and that's where my business partner PJ is pretty. It's pretty incredible to see what he's done, because he's like, yeah, we'll personal guarantee that, no problem. And where I'm like, I'm not doing that. And during COVID, I think that's where the public support really came out. Like the truth of the matter for our industry is, Canada Restaurants Association, Alberta Hospitality Association, the stats came out, even in the US, all those restaurant associations came out. We're a 3 to 5% profit line. We do this because we love it.
Yeah, quite literally.
But when your house is signed in on the line, and I think that's where, if there was a positive that came out of COVID, it was the misconception that every restaurant owner was multimillionaires floating around on boats. Came to a crashing,
it's a real hustle and grind.
Which I don't understand, because, everybody was like, oh, I love watching, Chopped, right? Yeah. So they see those restaurant owners that are like, yeah, I need this $10,000. I could buy a new rationale or put it towards a piece of a new rationale, like a piece of equipment, right? But then COVID hit, and it's like, oh, every restaurant owner is a millionaire. It was great in that sense.
It's that misunderstanding, though. It's like we're all guilty of it from other standpoints. Like, for instance, I don't know anything about the movie industry, and then every time I see a movie star, I just assume, oh, $20 million check. This guy is set. But what I didn't realize is, oh, this guy probably has 30 sub businesses that he launched. This $20 million check is just to make sure all those things float, and and it's like people just don't know what they don't know. But you said something earlier at the beginning of this podcast when I was listening. It's like, I do feel like everyone needs to work in service to understand because there's so many analogies, because this game we're in, it's so results oriented, but it plays off of how genuinely able are you to get along with people, because at the end of the day, drinking, everything's about people, so like that's why
It's social.
it's social.
This is built like it's built to get out and be social.
Yeah. And that's the entire point of this. It's not to it's just I'm all I'm trying to say is, like, people, they all should do a term like a solid period working. I'm not talking about like just the cushy serving job if they're really attractive. No, I'm talking about learn how the actual numbers work, learn how much one of these things costs to produce, like how much you're actually selling for, so someone doesn't feel ripped off. Like just the ins and out, as you said, we're 3.5% margin. Like, we do this because we love it. Like, if it was about massive margins, we would all try to like get into the next crypto fad or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's I've nothing. I was just.
And don't get me wrong, like, our industry, it can be profitable. It's going to take a while, like in North America, for entrepreneurs in our industry to get back to, those 2 years during the pandemic. It's going to take at least 2.5 years to try to even get all of it back. But, we do it because we love it, and we're blessed with, great people around us. But more importantly, we're blessed with doing what we love around what can be a flexible schedule, if you have the right people working for you, right? So
yes,
yeah.
With that in mind, like, what do you think's the most optimal work-life balance for someone this long?
You're asking the wrong person. I'm still trying to learn that. Okay. Like, I am God bless my wife, because the amount of hours she's had to put up with the last 20 years. But it's work-life balance is, like, I see you're in good shape. Kass is in great shape. I think staying. And it's funny, you can go to all the online mentors you want. They all say the same thing. You have to physically be taking care of yourself. That'd be first base, right? Second base on work-life balance right now is, and this is what I'm really, as myself, trying to refine and get better at, from my business partner, PJ, who's doing it light years ahead of me right now, is letting go, is letting go and making sure that my key managers, that I have 100% trust in them, and that they can execute from there. Like, I'm blessed. I have the director of operations for my restaurant, was a chef with us, ran our kitchen, ran the front, knows I don't have to mince words with him. He can complete a sentence before I even finish it. So the director of operations for my brewery, he's now been with me off and on, between bartending and the liquor manager to me, to starting up our brewery, being sales for our brewery, to helping can produce, to now he runs the brewery for me. And same thing, I don't have to mince. There's no puppy dogs and ice cream that is there. And that's what's been a blessing at work-life balance, is being able to have those two pieces in place. But I can honestly say this, without PJ's guidance in that area, I don't know if I ever would have got there. I think I would have been like dug in. Yeah. Nothing can get by me without me handling it. So
yeah. We'll have to give you a call on that one, because Kass and I here, that's our problem with. So we had nonstop 5-star reviews on Google, and we were like on a roll. And then the one time, like, chef had to take like Emmanuel Stackard, by the way, our head chef. Whole menu's designed by him. Amazing guy. The way you talk about your chefs, the way I feel about ours. I love that guy now more than business. Like he truly, just his actions just show you're like a good human being, like solid. But the one time, like, Kass had to step out, I had to step out, then like Eman had to step out. It was just that one little 2-hour gap. That's when we had like our like 1-star review. So that kind of ate me alive, because I'm sitting here like, so what happens? Does everyone just kind of like, when the bosses aren't around, they slack off? Like, I don't like that.
Some of the best regulars that I have ever built in any of the restaurants I've owned came off of the shittiest reviews.
What do you mean?
Because as soon as we see a review come in like that, we're responding with, we apologize, like that's not us. Can we get you back to prove to you that, you know, this is better the second time? And then we get them back. It's like, by the way, if you ever need a reservation, please email us on this thread. So that drives me when I see a shitty review come in. Now, that being said, in our industry, there are the reviews that it's, you know,
illegitimate.
Well, not illegitimate. It is, quite frankly, you get, you know, we're on 17th Avenue, so you get people coming up, they're over intoxicated, they don't get let in, you know, for good reason, and then they write a review at 2:30 in the morning. I think one great thing about reviews is, for my management team, the way we have it in stone is there better not be a poor review written unless we know it's coming. So if, you know, Mary Jane and Dave had a terrible experience with Eggs Benedict, service was slow, and the manager logs separately out to the team, by the way, we could see this coming down. I offered them a gift card, tried to do everything I could, and they still left unhappy. If that review comes through, then, you know, for my management team, like, yeah, great job, you did all you could do. Now, for the public, I always say this, please, and I think industry staff are the most guilty of this. If there is service that is going wrong, ask for a manager, because it becomes a situation of, in our industry, we can't fix it unless we know. So if you brought your car in and said, yeah, there's something wrong with my car, and you knew it was, you know, the gear shift or what have you, is the mechanics can be spending hours and hours trying to figure that out. Right? In our industry, we can only fix what we know. And I love it when I get a DM or a text, hey, by the way, we're on your patio, we're not get great service. You know, we could correct that right there, right? If, you know, always ask for a manager, always, because if you've given them a chance to fix it live right there and they don't do it, then that does speak volumes for the business, right? Now, again, we can't be staying up you can't please everybody in this industry. You just cannot. But you have to be able to please the clientele and customers that come in for your concept. So you have to stick to that to that horse.
Kass has been schooling me on that. He the sentiment you explained is kind of what he told me too. He's kind of like, you got to pick your battles and knowing what to take personal and what not. And he pointed out, I don't know, I'd say that 1-star review though, it was just more of a realization of more human nature stuff. Just because, you know, I bartended for years, and when I looked at it as a side thing to supplement my oil and gas career, I didn't give a shit as much.
And meet chicks.
Let's
be completely honest.
Yeah. So anyway, I bartended to meet chicks, and
that's what, like, when I bartended, I was like a solid 6. It was like, you know, but back then it was, you know, again, like when I was coming up.
Sorry, what do you mean by that?
Like, I was like, if you're in a 10, I was like overweight. I was.
Oh, okay.
You know, but you know, definitely not a catch. You know, but at that time, again, bartenders were like, if you were fast, great cocktailer, you know, but you had to be fast. You had to be fast. And that's what's, you know, back to what you said, it's like, you know, I bartended to meet people. It was, and not to meet everybody. You meet so many people over that wood.
That's true. No, I fully agree. And like bartending, the hookup element of it was obviously a big draw. But all I'm trying to say was, like, at the end of the day, like, that is an empty hole. Like, you're like, I'm a happy engaged man right now. Kass is you know, like, has a wife and kid. Ernie's married. Ernie, do you have children?
We have, I have a daughter. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. How old is she?
Oh, she's 30.
Okay.
She's 30, man.
Oh no, okay, sweet. Yeah, so you started young.
Well, no, my wife brought Ashley in when we started to date.
Okay.
She was in grade 8 at the time.
Okay,
Yeah.
sweet. Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, it was crazy. I went from like consummate bachelor restaurant owner
To instantly
like
being a dad.
3 women living in the house with 1 bathroom. Yeah, that was. Yeah, it was something.
Was that during the period where you're trying to take on that side project?
Oh man, yeah, actually it was. Actually, now that you bring it up, it was a little bit. But,
maybe we're overloaded.
But it was crazy. 3 women in 1 house with 1 bathroom. That was something.
Oh God. Yeah, Kass lives with all women. All his pets are women too. So it's literally all women. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Lost my train of thought, Ernie. But the hookup culture part, that is fun. I do gotta say that's not how I stumbled into the bar industry though. Like it's I stumbled in for a different reason. Because did you remember I'm gonna name the club. Do you remember the club Jimmy Dean's?
Oh yes, Jimmy Dean's, Misty's. Yeah, I know.
So
Jimmy Dean's well, yeah.
I worked at Jimmy Dean's for 5 years, right when I was 18 to 23, maybe
Jimmy
6.
Dean's. That was a while ago.
I know, bro. Yeah, but I stumbled into that job because at the time, I had this buddy. Like I was training loads of like mixed martial arts at the time. I was aspiring to be a fighter actually. And
MMA was around during Jimmy Dean's?
It was starting.
Oh,
that was
Royce Gracie.
No. That was Jimmy Dean's went on into I caught it at the tail end. So early 2000s, Jimmy Dean's was still around.
Was it?
Yeah, I was there. I'll talk to you off air. But so the GM we had, he used to work at the Palace, and
the Palace.
Yeah. But the Jimmy Dean's experience, because at the time, I don't know, I have a good life, Ernie, and I'm not gonna lie, I really do have a good life. I had a chip on my shoulder from all sorts of whatever, childhood trauma shit, whatever. But I love fighting. That's the bottom line. And I just remember my buddy, he got a job at Jimmy's, and he's this big, we're both same age, but at the time, big Jack Russian immigrant dude.
Bouncer security.
Yep, he was a bouncer. But I just remember him. Long story short, he's like, "Hey man, I know you've been doing a lot of training. I found this bar where anything goes, basically." So then, I'm like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "So what does that mean?" It's it means you could scrap without getting worried about lawsuits or whatever.
Yeah.
So then I go visit my friend, and
early 2000s. Well, you couldn't headbutt anymore.
I don't. Well, all I know is I showed up to Jimmy Dean's, and at this point, I'm 18, 19, so I'm out usually going to Cowboys, Tequila, Tantra nightclub. It was that was the spots I was partying at.
Oh my God.
Anyway, but my buddy ends up telling me about Jimmy Dean's, and then I kind of asked my parents. I was like, "Hey, there's this nightclub. I guess I'm kind of maybe going to scout a job at." And when I named it, they're like, "Oh no!" They're like, "Don't like." They're like, "What? Why are you going there?" We've heard of Jimmy Dean's, and my parents aren't big partiers at all, but they used to go to Electric Ave and stuff. And but anyway, so I cruise down to Jimmy's, and first thing I do is I see all the door guys. They have on stab vests, right? But my friend, who was the head door guy at the time, at 19, but he's just a big dude. He's just laying this one guy out, right near the dance floor. And he looks at me. He's just like, "Oh, hey, good to see you. Record night or whatever." A lot of chaos.
Right in the middle of the
and no one cared. Yeah. No one cared. And then and he comes up and I'm like, "Hey, where's your stab vest?" And he says the most crazy thing. He's just like, "Oh no, I'm not gonna wear that, man. It restricts my punch." Yeah. So that was my introduction to the nightclub game. And then I talked to the manager that night, and I was like, "Yeah, I want in." So then, yeah. They threw me on door, but I was on door for only a month before the guy came back. The GM, he was just like, "Shawn, you're going on bar."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Why am I going on bar? I like this." He's like, "Do you want to make money or do you want to fight people?" And in my brain at the time, I was like, "Well, I'm kind of using this more to train fighting, but okay, whatever." So I hopped behind the bar, and then I sucked, man. I crashed that bar that first week. I didn't know shit. I didn't know what a draft even was. I drank, but I didn't know what I was drinking, and holy fuck, that was a nightmare for 2 weeks there. Because 2 weeks, because I only had 2 shifts, Friday, Saturday. Then next Friday, Saturday,
But
come
you
back.
thought you knew the bar before you got back.
I knew nothing. I got yelled at by every girl there. Suddenly, you're talking about being a bartender. You get pick up girls. Like I was the most unattractive guy due to like not being able to help the wood.
Yeah.
And then that's when I took it as a challenge. Like I was going to university at the time, and I just, even though I had classes going, like my dad was paying for the education, so I was like, I'm putting this aside. I actually want to learn this now, just for my own pride, because when you crash on the wood, nothing's more demoralizing than that. And you just have this, like, I have to figure this out.
Well,
like,
you're also affecting the girls' money, too.
You're affecting the girls' money. You're affecting yourself. You look stupid in front of, like, all these guests. Like, and I just remember my ego is like, I got to figure out this bar game thing. Like, you know, because, like, at the outside, people who've never worked in the bar industry, you know, they all assume it's easy. I'm like, people, you know, like people who never worked in the industry being like, oh, how hard's the server's job? How hard's the bartender's job? Like, how did he screw up my drink? Like, and they're like, you know, like that's very ignorant what you said. And it just shows me how coddled every job you went to was.
It's ignorant, but we still have to understand that is our job. Like, you know, and I always love saying this to my managers and staff. It's like, remove the emotion out of this. Are they unhappy? Right? So, yes, you're going to get the literally 1 out of 50. 1 out of 50 customer that's having a bad day and they want to inflict it on you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
1. But the other 49, step out of your own skin. What caused that?
True.
Right? Like, you know, 5 minutes to them, like, my favorite is this. They've only been sitting there for 5 minutes. It's like, well, 5 minutes in 32-degree weather out on the patio feels like 15.
Yeah. Or if you only have a 45-minute lunch and you're working there. Like,
exactly.
Yeah,
the 45-minute lunch is
Yeah.
the biggest. You know, my favorite is this. Corporate lunch hour.
Yeah.
And bartenders and servers not realizing they have to get those bills to the table
Yeah.
at 1:45,
Yeah.
not 12:59. Because
Yeah.
people still have to walk back to work.
Yeah.
Right? So then that complaint comes through, and it's the customer's fault.
Yeah.
So I still think there needs to be that balance there for sure.
Yeah. I know that all too well. Back when I used to work, I used to work in Bankers Hall, and I used to go to, local Bank and Baron, just like and local was actually super good. But there was a couple times that, maybe not Bank and Baron, could be another bar. But it's just I remember the lunch execution. Like we were all late for work for another 20 minutes, sorting out who's paying what. Yeah. And that part I remember, like this is before Kass like brought me back into the bars. But I just remember thinking in my head, I was like, this has to be harder than it looks for it to be screwed up this bad at this time. It has to be, because I'm imagining, I'm like, we got 20 people here all paying separately, and then I just remember like a couple of my coworkers there, like like I remember them modding their meal to this, like I'm like, your mod already took like 10 minutes of everyone's time.
So glad you brought that up.
I was like, this must be harder. And then I remember just keeping an eye out, like, you know, because I remember I still like I always tip my servers like a lot because of my experiences working in service leading up to that. But I just remember like my coworkers were just like, they were just talking so much shit, and I was like, guys, like our job is ridiculous. You are going to send out maybe 5 emails this entire afternoon, and you think that was a great day.
I got to interrupt you there because it's like modifications.
Yeah.
And I think this is where that everyone needs to work in the industry at one point or another. Kevin Pollock, one of the best chefs I ever worked under, he's like, he put in a company policy, only 3 modifications, period. And I will never forget this. I walked into, a restaurant that is part of a big chain, and they were House of Yes at the time. And they're running, the hostess says to me, by the way, sir, just to let you know, we're not going to be doing any food service for the next 90 minutes.
Okay.
And I knew the executive chef there at that time, and he comes out, and I'm like, how's House of Yes? So here's the realization for public.
Yeah.
It's a Saturday night. The whole restaurant is full. 25 bills online with 9 to 10 items each, and 50% of them modifications.
Oh God.
So what I learned from Kevin was when I worked underneath him, he was the chef for our company. He's like, why only 3 mods? Because if it goes over 3 modifications, this customer makes this at home. We can't do that.
Yeah.
We're not going to be able to do that. And now in the technology times where it's TV screens, like QSR screens at each station, if there's a modification on one item, menu item, now it's on every single station. So essentially you have to shut service down for the rest of the restaurant and customers to accommodate, an item that's being made from scratch.
Yeah.
So it's funny you bring that up, especially during lunch hours.
Yeah. Well,
right?
we have a very intimate setup here in our kitchen. I don't know if Cass, we'll give you a tour after. Like, we ran into some limitations due to when the city was evaluating our walkthrough. Like, he's like, this has to move here. This has to be 2 inches here. And we're like, ooh, like, it's like, you realize we have like 3 guys fitting behind that line, like cooking for, 100 people potentially, but that's what I mean by the guy's response to these things. Because in the end, like, it wasn't the end of the world if it's off by 2 inches here or there, but that 2 inches creates even more space for someone to shift and move between, like grill and line prepping and stuff. But they don't know these things. And I just kept thinking, like, had you just worked a bit in
which
the
is
game,
crazy, I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
And I think this is what a massive blessing was that did come out of COVID for hospitality and fitness.
Yeah.
Was, we want you to put these restrictions in place and don't worry about the public repercussions. It's like, so my response at that time for not just hospitality, fitness was, I would use the city councilor to come down, sit behind the reception desk or hostess stand, and see what kind of aggressive heat we're going to get from the public on the restrictions that you think are so easy to put in place.
Yeah.
Right? But had you worked in the industry,
you wouldn't
you
think
would
like
be,
that.
That might not work.
Yeah.
Right? So
and I was going to piggyback off that. And have you been to Hong Kong?
I have, yeah.
You have. Okay,
Going back this November.
Amazing. Yeah, like I have family in Hong Kong, been there a bunch, but I've never been to New York. But when you go to Hong Kong, and I was in Vietnam actually for vacation right before COVID hit. But when you see how those mini restaurants operate, I'm like sitting here like, that's what I mean by, is this the way they're operating? Are these contaminating human safety? Like, no, man. Like, they're doing everything in a condensed way, and it makes sense, and it's efficient, and it's amazing how efficient it is. And I'm just sitting here like, and we're worrying about, like, collapsing the kitchen to shrink in by, a foot and a foot here and there just to meet some kind of criteria that to this day I'm not even quite sure I understand what that was.
Yeah,
it's like, and then like just even weird shit like when you're modding a meal. Like, again, it's like in Hong Kong, I just love seeing that efficiency because it's weird. I remember the one guy, like, the mods were coming in, I could see it modding, and he rips the chit, so it's like evened out, so it's not like falling into the dips and stuff, like, but over here it's like when someone mods something crazy too, like, you gotta take into account, like, if you never worked in the industry, like, you're simply writing instructions into a computer that prints out so someone can read it, and then, like, you're modding this novel. It's gonna,
and the way
there's
the
10
best
people
way
sitting,
to explain it is hey guys, if we've got 200 people in the building, and this modification comes in that is basically a menu item built from scratch.
Yeah.
Now the other 19 tables behind it are going to have to wait so that every station can shut down. Now, hey, allergies, absolutely. Like, massive education for everybody out there is, our industry needs to be 110% on allergies.
Yes.
My old business partner was, peanut, like severe peanut allergy, right? So allergies, you have to maintain that 150%. But building items from scratch are very tough. Mm-hmm. Very tough.
Did you do you watch Family Guy at all?
No, you know what?
They had a really funny bit about that. Yeah. The guy was like, he's like, Peter is just like, can you make shepherd's pie? And the guy's like, oh, it's not on our menu. And then he pops off. He's just like, do you have eggs? Do you have flour? Do you have chicken? Do you have? And then as he lists, he's like, okay, well, yeah, guy, like, we could probably make anything, but the whole point is not about that. It's about like the food, man. Like, you want to, like, do you want everyone else to wait 3 hours so you can get your custom item?
I could go to my family's restaurant, the Silver Dragon. They have everything to make pasta, but They're not going to be making
like
carbonara when they're
just
doing chow mein.
because everything's structured to be efficient for that menu. And when you're trying to do a custom item, I mean, anyway, I've never done that just because of being in the industry. But I don't know. But it's always, I think that one's always the tough cookie to crack, if you will, because they're like you're gonna get those people because especially in the society what we're in now, so many people work from home. They make a lot of money working from home. They're so used to their routine from home. Next thing you know, they have their habits, and then their reality is distorted by the time they go actually hang out with their friends in a bar restaurant, and then they order for like creating basically their super prep meal from home, like from scratch. I don't know. Yeah. But yeah, I like, and you've definitely like. Is there anything you haven't seen in the industry? Would you say?
It's funny you bring that up. I thought I had seen everything humanly possible in this industry. I mean, I ran nightclubs, I ran lounges, pubs, restaurants. But when COVID hit, that is something I have never seen.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking just about the infliction of the pain on the hospitality, hotel, fitness industry, but how it created so much diversity. Like just, it was crazy. But coming out of it now, it's and you know what, coming from Calgary, thank goodness for the Calgary Stampede. In all honesty.
Yes.
Calgary Stampede kind of wipes out all. Like it's like, hey, this is our 10 days to be out with everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody, and I mean everybody. You look at Cowboys coming out with that drag brunch right out of COVID. That was amazing, right? And the drag brunch continued on at major venues. And we've always had drag brunches, but not at that volume, right? So the 10 days of Stampede kind of gets everybody back into the track. Any festivals or main music shows gets reeled back. But man, I thought I saw everything until COVID, and then it's like something I've never seen.
Yeah, sure. I always tell people lately anyway, especially ever since this Stampede, so I guess I've only been preaching this for a week, but I keep telling people, I'm like, they're like, oh, Stampede's so expensive. I'm like, Stampede, because I don't get too political. I'm like, okay, you if you're all about like left-wing rhetoric, Stampede is the ultimate, in a weird, strange way, taking care of each other time. You want to spend money during that period because so many businesses, they get that buffer so that they can perform better for you for the rest of the year. I think Stampede's a 10-day period where everyone just splurges, have fun, and connect. But it's like that's your time to spend because it brings the Calgary economy back to life and sets up small business owners and big business owners, but it sets people up. And then people complain about, okay, I'm spending too much during that period. It's like, it's okay. That's the super vacation, because what you're spending, you don't realize you're actually improving the city as a whole.
Well, I'll take Calgary as the best example. Yeah. I'm not sure about other city centers. Over 50% of the revenues for this city comes from commercial property tax. Did you know that?
No, I did not.
Yeah. So I think it's 54% of Calgary's revenues comes from commercial property tax.
That's crazy, because we literally just had one levied on us out of nowhere.
It doesn't. To me, it's not whether you're left or right or center. It is about the fact that, hey, I don't want to see residential property tax go up. Believe me.
Yeah.
But the more businesses that close, the more businesses that are not feeding 54% of this revenue coming into the city, then you're going to see it come back on the residents, right? So the 10 days of Stampede, if you talk to the Calgary Hotel Association, Saul, yes, the perimeter hotels have been doing great coming out of COVID. Downtown hotels have had a struggle. Stampede, everything was booked out. Okay, and not just from the bigger thing about Stampede is the music.
Yeah,
is the art.
Yeah,
look at all of the music that comes in for the 10 days.
I went to Jimmy Eat World. I love that band.
Yeah. Of all age groups.
Yeah,
you got Ice Cube, Shaggy,
Steve Aoki,
TLC, Aoki. But then on the other side of things, you've got all these, you've got big artists rolling through for all age groups. And in a city right now that needs to get that live music back on track.
Mhm.
It's
We're
hugely
heading
important.
in the right direction. Like even Steve Aoki on his Instagram was like, "Holy fuck, Calgary, Canada! Like this place needs more attention. Like
Yeah.
they go so hard." I remember reading that. I was just like, "Fuck yeah," you know, because like we're I don't know, like we're like the best
But then-
city on the planet.
We are,
You know?
but then you look at the need, okay, of the new rink or event center.
Yep.
Okay, you look at Blink 182.
Yeah.
That drum solo
Yeah.
that Barker does
Yeah.
in every single city, inverted like the old Motley Crue, comes out over top of the crowd. Couldn't do it at the Dome.
He didn't do it?
Nope, couldn't.
I
Couldn't do it
actually
at the
I had
Dome.
tickets for that and I missed
Eric
it.
Church, when he arrived in Calgary, the first time, there was a snowfall. Couldn't put up his TVs, couldn't put up the speakers, had to do an acoustic show in a 15,000 person rink. So when we talk about the economy and the needs for whether it's Stampede or whatever can help the commercial district, not just hospitality and hotels, just commercial overall, it's going to make sure that we keep the revenues in for everybody, residents alike.
I really didn't know that, Ernie, about the commercial taxing. It's like, wow, so that's that big opponent is the one to fight, and if everyone like contributes during Stampede, like that gets literally sets everything more stable and better.
And don't get me wrong, like I grew up in Mindapore, right? So the need, like I see it on all ends, like, you know, the need for transit, the need for more amenities. And right now the housing crisis, oh my God, like the housing crisis in this city is brutal, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's nothing to rent. I get that. But we need now, hey, if the city wants to flip it where it's, you know, over 50% is coming from residential, right? Then commercial can still step up to do their part. But if it's over 50% of the revenues are coming in,
is this stemming from the oil and gas days? Is that why? Because all those downtown office towers were supposed to be full.
Yeah, this is commercial property tax, and,
Yeah.
and the empty buildings downtown.
Because right now it seems a bit backwards right now because people
don't
work from home.
forget, like when Mayor Nenshi was in, there was a 2-year freeze. They had to put a 2-year freeze on commercial property tax because too many businesses were closing. Too many businesses were leaving, right? Leaving the city. So you can't be a world-class city, as every one of these councillors and the mayor campaigned on, and not identify where commercial property tax is at, right? So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey Ernie, I'm going to wind this down here, but I do have one last question for you. Like, are you like, you seem to have almost this like political energy to you. Like, do you ever think about like diving into that realm?
No, man. I you know, my focus needs to be right now is you know, doing everything for my industry to you know, on the Alberta hospitality side to, you know, keep moving us forward and giving not just the existing restaurant owners, but the new and young and up and coming restaurant owners, you know, a great path to doing what they love. But it's, you know, I will say this: it's been a blessing to be able to work with provincial government and municipal government on. You know, I'm part of the business advisory committee with Sonia Sharp, who's absolutely amazing. This city councilor that we have in Calgary, Sonia Sharp, is outstanding.
Yeah.
You know, so I've been blessed on that end, and you know, we will continue to work with government to try to, you know, make things more whole for our industry, you know, in the next couple of years.
Okay. No, that's perfect. Yeah, Ernie, it's been a pleasure talking to you right now. I like come back on as often as you want. Obviously, I love your energy. I just pick up, like, I feel like just again going off a Star Wars reference, I'm literally like I'm talking to a Jedi master,
Hey, man,
and we're just come up the ranks
I love
here.
beer, and I'm a nerd. I know Star Wars and comics inside out. So,
Oh, well, you're in the right bar. Then Kass and I are super dorks.
But I love what you guys are doing. This is killer. This is, like,
and
awesome.
And what you said, we love this. That's why we're doing this. You know, Kass and I, we never miss work unless we're physically done. You know, like I did bottom out 2 days ago where I was actually starting to see gray on the side of my vision, and Kass was like, what's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Dude, he's like, you didn't drink that much last night. We were here," and I was like, "I don't know, man." And then Kass was like, "How much sleep you been getting?" I was like, wow, under 5 hours for the last 2 weeks. And then he's like, okay, like go home. And I remember going home being like, Cass sending me home, my partner sending me home, like kind of like muffling to myself, like, fuck that, like I could have, and then I just fell asleep for like 15 hours. And
the shutdown.
Yeah, it was crazy. I've actually never had to push my body like that before. So it's been a bit of a grind. Okay, but Ernie, we're gonna put all of Trolley 5's things on the show notes there. I'm glad Cass got to tag me in because I really wanted to podcast with you here. I wanted to talk with you, and then fortunately everything worked out for our lunch rush. Okay, but Ernie, great meeting you.
Cheers,
I'm sure we'll talk more. Okay, all right, guys, have a good day. Peace. Bye.